I will never forget the sound. It was like thunder cracking inside our house. My mother's body hit the wooden staircase, each step echoing in my ears as if the whole world stopped. I screamed so loud my throat burned, but my father's voice cut through my cry. She fell. She was on the phone and she slipped, he shouted, his face twisted with fake worry. He pulled out his phone and dialed the police, his hands shaking, but I knew those weren't the hands of an innocent man. Because I saw it. I saw the way his arm pushed her. I saw the way his eyes burned with anger just seconds before her foot lost the step. I saw the truth, but the truth was about to be buried under his lie. The officers rushed in minutes later. My father repeated his story. She was distracted. She lost balance while answering a call. They nodded, taking notes. No one looked at me, the girl frozen in the corner with tears streaming down her cheeks. But I wasn't just frozen. I was broken. And at that moment, I realized, if I stayed silent, my mother's fall would become just another accident. Her truth would die in my father's lie. But I wasn't ready to speak, not yet. Before I take you deeper into this story, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Emily Carter. I am 19 years old, and I am speaking to you right here from Dallas, Texas, USA. Before we continue, please make sure you subscribe, like this video, and click the notification button so you don't miss any of my upcoming shocking stories. And please, let me know in the comments what part of the country you are watching from. I really want to hear from you all. Now, let me take you back to how this nightmare really began. My parents were never the picture-perfect couple you see in family photos. To outsiders, we were normal, Sunday church, family dinners, smiling pictures. But behind our closed doors, shadows lived in the corners of our house. My father, Richard Carter, was a man with two faces. In public, he was charming, respected, even admired. People called him Mr. Reliable because he always lent a hand to neighbors. But at home, his voice was thunder. My mother, Grace, bore the storm every day. She smiled through bruises, hid tears behind her makeup, and whispered prayers when she thought no one could hear. Growing up, I noticed things. The way she flinched when he walked into the room. The way he slammed doors hard enough to rattle the windows. The way dinner plates sometimes shattered against the kitchen wall when he didn't like the taste of food. But my mother stayed. She always said, "Emily, he wasn't always like this. I'm holding on to the man I married." And I was too young to understand that sometimes the man you marry never comes back. The weeks leading up to that horrible night were strange. My father had become more restless, more suspicious. He started accusing my mom of hiding things, sneaking around, talking to people behind his back. She denied it, of course. But I could see she was growing tired. Her smiles faded faster, her eyes carried secrets she couldn't share. One night, I overheard them. Their voices cut through the silence like sharp glass. "Grace, don't play games with me," my father snapped. "I'm not hiding anything, Richard," my mom replied, her voice trembling. "Then why were you whispering on the phone?" "It was Emily's school. They called about her scholarship." "Why do you always think the worst?" "Because I know you, Grace. Don't forget, I see everything." I remember pressing my ear against the wall, my heart racing. My mom had always been the strongest person I knew, but that night, I heard fear in her voice. The next day, she told me something that made my chest tighten. She whispered, "Emily, promise me something. If anything ever happens to me, don't believe the first story you hear. Look deeper." At the time, I thought she was being dramatic. But those words would haunt me forever. The day of the fall, everything seemed almost normal. Dinner was quiet. Dad didn't speak much, just sat with his fork scraping the plate. Mom excused herself to take a call. It was from her sister in Florida. I followed her halfway up the stairs, listening to her soft laughter on the phone. For a brief moment, I thought maybe we could have peace again. Then my father appeared behind her. His voice was low, angry. "Who are you talking to, Grace?" She turned, surprised. It's my sister, Richard. Please, don't. And then it happened. The push. The scream. The fall. My world collapsed with her body on those steps. The officers believed him. They took his word. My mother was rushed to the hospital, fighting for her life. And me? I stood there, carrying the heaviest secret of all, the truth. But here's the thing about secrets, they don't stay buried forever. They claw their way out, one way or another. That night, after the police left, my father turned to me. His eyes weren't sad. They weren't even scared. They were sharp, like knives. You didn't see anything, Emily, he said coldly. Do you understand? But I had seen everything. And I knew right then, I was no longer just my mother's daughter. I was her only witness. As I sat in my room later, shaking, I heard a noise downstairs. A crash, like glass breaking. My father was talking on the phone, his voice low but urgent. I crept down the hallway, and what I heard made my blood run cold. He wasn't just lying to the police. He was planning something worse. Before I continue, let me pause for a second. My name is Emily Carter, I'm 19 years old, speaking to you from Dallas, Texas. If you're just joining, please make sure to subscribe, like this video, and click the notification bell so you don't miss any of my upcoming shocking stories. And please, tell me in the comments where you are watching from, I always love to know. Now, let me take you back to that night, right after my mother's fall. I sat in my room, hugging my knees, trembling. My mother was in the hospital. My father was downstairs, pretending to be the heartbroken husband, calling relatives, making sure everyone believed his story. But then his voice changed. Through the crack of my door, I heard him talking on the phone in a whisper. She's still alive. Yes, but she won't last long. If she talks, it's over for me. I need to make sure she doesn't wake up. My heart stopped. I covered my mouth with my hand, fighting back a scream. My father wasn't just lying to the police. He was plotting to silence my mother forever. I pressed myself against the wall, shaking so badly my teeth chattered. My own father, the man who used to carry me on his shoulders at the park, was now planning something unthinkable. For the first time in my life, I realized I wasn't safe in my own house. When I finally heard him hang up the phone, I tiptoed back into my room and locked the door. I couldn't sleep. My mind spun with questions. Who was he talking to? What did he mean by make sure she doesn't wake up? Was he working with someone? The next morning, Dad acted normal, almost too normal. He wore his pressed shirt, shaved his face, and even made breakfast. Eat something, Emily, he said calmly, sliding a plate of eggs across the table. I couldn't touch the food. Every bite tasted like poison. Is Mom okay? I whispered. She's in the hospital. The doctors say she's in critical condition, he replied, his eyes unreadable. But accidents happen, Emily. You need to accept that. Accidents. That word made me sick. I nodded quietly, but inside I was screaming. After school that day, I went straight to the hospital. My Aunt Linda was already there, crying softly beside Mom's bed. Machines beeped around her, wires tangled across her body, her face pale as snow. When I saw her, something broke inside me. I grabbed her hand, whispering, "Mom, please fight. Please don't leave me. I know the truth. I saw what he did. Please, wake up and tell them yourself." Her fingers twitched ever so slightly, but her eyes remained closed. That night, when I got home, I found my father sitting in the living room, staring at the TV. He didn't look up when I walked past him. But as I reached the stairs, he spoke. "Emily," he said slowly. I froze. "If anyone asks, you tell them your mother fell. Do you understand me?" I turned my head, my voice shaking. "What if she wakes up and says otherwise?" His eyes narrowed. "She won't. I rushed upstairs before he could say another word, but I couldn't breathe. His voice echoed in my head. She won't. The next few days were a blur. I kept visiting Mom, praying she would wake up. My aunt started asking me questions. Emily, did you see what happened that night? You were there, weren't you? I wanted to tell her everything. But every time I thought about speaking, I remembered my father's eyes, the way he looked at me when he said I hadn't seen anything. He wasn't just warning me. He was threatening me. But then, something changed. One evening, when I came home from the hospital, I found an envelope slipped under my bedroom door. I opened it with shaky hands. Inside was a folded piece of paper. On it, in messy handwriting, were just 4 words. Your father is lying. I dropped the paper, my heart pounding. Who had written this? Who knew the truth besides me? I rushed to my window, peeking outside, but the street was empty. My hands were sweating, my chest tight. Someone else was watching. Someone else knew. I wasn't alone anymore. But then, a terrifying thought hit me. If someone else knew the truth, my father might know too. And if he found out who it was? That night, I couldn't close my eyes. Every creak in the house made me jump. Every shadow in the hallway felt like danger. By midnight, I heard movement outside my window. I crawled to the edge of my bed, my breath caught in my throat. When I peeked through the curtains, my blood ran cold. My father was outside. And he wasn't alone. Hi everyone, before I continue, let me quickly remind you, my name is Emily Carter, I'm 19 years old, speaking to you from Dallas, Texas. Please subscribe, like this video, and click that notification bell so you don't miss my upcoming shocking stories. And don't forget to drop a comment telling me what part of the country you are watching from. Now, let's continue. That night, as I stood frozen by the window, I saw my father outside in the driveway. He wasn't alone. A man stood with him, tall and dressed in black, his face hidden under a hood. My father kept looking around nervously, as if making sure no one was watching. But I was watching. Their voices were low, but the night was quiet enough for me to catch broken pieces of their conversation. She's still in the hospital, my father said sharply. If she wakes up, I'm finished. You understand what I'm saying? The hooded man nodded. Consider it handled. My stomach dropped. My father wasn't just planning. He was hiring someone to end my mother's life before she had a chance to speak. I pressed my hand against my mouth, trying not to gasp. Every muscle in my body screamed to run, but I couldn't move. The man handed something small to my father, a packet of some kind. My father stuffed it in his jacket pocket, his eyes cold and determined. Then they shook hands, and the stranger slipped away into the night. I backed away from the window, my chest heaving. My legs gave out, and I slid to the floor. The truth was darker than I ever imagined. My father wasn't just a liar. He was a monster. The next morning, I tried to act normal. I came down for breakfast, forcing myself to chew toast even though my stomach was in knots. My father sat across from me, sipping his coffee. His face was calm, almost too calm. Did you sleep well? He asked casually. I swallowed hard. Why yeah. His eyes lingered on me for a moment, as if searching for cracks in my mask. Then he smiled faintly and looked away. I knew that smile. It wasn't kindness. It was control. Later that day, I rushed to the hospital again. My Aunt Linda was there, holding Mom's hand and whispering prayers. I pulled her aside, my voice trembling. Aunt Linda, I whispered, we can't trust Dad. He's not telling the truth about what happened. Her eyes widened. Emily, are you saying he hurt your mother? Tears stung my eyes. I wanted to scream yes, to tell her everything. But the words caught in my throat. I don't know, I stammered. But something feels wrong. She studied me, concern etched on her face, but before she could press further, a nurse entered the room with an update. My mother's condition was slowly improving. She wasn't awake yet, but the doctors said her chances were stronger now. Standing near her 4-line. He wasn't a nurse I recognized. He fiddled with the bag, his movements stiff, unnatural. "Aunt Linda," I whispered urgently, "who is that?" She looked confused. I thought he was with the staff. But something about him was wrong. His eyes darted nervously as he worked. Then, as if sensing my stare, he glanced at me. His expression was cold, calculated. I knew that face. It was the man in the hood. "Hello everyone, my name is Emily Carter. I'm 19 years old, speaking to you from Dallas, Texas. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe, like this video, and click the notification bell so you never miss my upcoming shocking stories. And please, tell me in the comments where you're watching from, I always love to know. Now, let's continue. The moment I recognized the hooded man in the hospital room, my stomach twisted into knots. His face was no longer hidden under shadows, but I knew him. He was the same man who met my father in the driveway, the same one who had promised to handle it. And now, he was standing next to my mother's 4-line, pretending to be a nurse. I froze at the door, my heart hammering in my chest. Aunt Linda was still whispering a prayer, unaware of the danger just feet away. The man's hands fidgeted with the clear liquid bag, and for a split second, I thought I saw a small vial slip from his pocket. I didn't think. I reacted. "Stop!" I shouted. My voice cracked through the quiet room. Aunt Linda looked up, startled, as the man stiffened. His eyes locked on mine, sharp and cold. "What are you doing to her?" I demanded, stepping closer. He forced a calm smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Relax. I'm just adjusting the drip." "No," I said firmly, shaking my head. "I've been here every day. I know the nurses. You're not one of them." For a brief moment, his mask slipped. His smile faded, and something dark flickered in his gaze. Then, without a word, he turned and walked quickly out of the room. "Emily, what was that?" Aunt Linda whispered, her voice trembling. I grabbed her hand. "That man, he's not a nurse. He's dangerous. He was going to hurt Mom." Her face drained of color. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure," I said, tears blurring my vision. "And I think Dad sent him." The weight of my words hung in the air. Aunt Linda pulled me into a hug, her arms trembling as much as mine. That night, Aunt Linda insisted on staying in Mom's room. "I won't leave her side," she said, her voice steady though her eyes betrayed fear. "If that man tries anything again, he'll have to get through me." I nodded, but the fear didn't leave me. It clung to me like a shadow. When I got home, my father was waiting in the living room. His tie was loosened, his sleeves rolled up, but his posture was stiff. He looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. "How's your mother?" he asked casually. I swallowed hard. "She's still the same." "Good," he said, leaning back in his chair. "Sometimes people survive things they shouldn't. But maybe she'll be lucky." His words made my blood run cold. It wasn't what he said, it was how he said it. Like survival was an inconvenience. I went to my room without another word, but I could feel his eyes following me. That night, I locked my door again, but sleep still refused to come. My mind kept circling back to the stranger in the hospital, the vial in his pocket, the way he looked at me when I called him out. He knew I recognized him. And he knew I was standing in his way. The next morning, I returned to the hospital. To my relief, Aunt Linda was still there, sitting beside Mom with tired eyes but a determined face. "Nothing happened last night," she said softly. "But I saw the way that man looked at you before he left. Be careful, Emily." I nodded, but I couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. Later that day, as I stepped out into the hospital parking lot, I felt it, a presence. Someone was watching me. I turned quickly, scanning the rows of cars, but everything looked normal. Nurses were heading to their shifts, visitors carried flowers and bags. Still, my skin prickled. I hurried to my car, fumbling with the keys. Just as I opened the door, a voice whispered from behind me. "You shouldn't have interfered." I spun around, my heart leaping into my throat. It was him, the hooded man. And this time, he wasn't hiding his threat. "Hello everyone, my name is Emily Carter. I'm 19 years old, speaking to you from Dallas, Texas. If this is your first time here, please subscribe, like this video, and click the notification bell so you don't miss any of my shocking upcoming stories. And before I continue, drop a comment telling me which part of the country you are watching from, I'd really love to know. Now, let's continue. The hooded man stood just a few feet away from me in the hospital parking lot, his shadow stretching across the asphalt. My hand gripped the car door, but my legs refused to move. His voice was low and sharp, like a blade. "You shouldn't have interfered," he repeated. I tried to steady my breathing, though my chest felt like it would explode. "Stay away from me," I whispered, though my voice cracked. He smirked. "This isn't about you. It's about your mother. If you keep getting in the way, you'll make things harder, for both of us." For both of us. The way he said it made my skin crawl, as if we were partners in a crime I never agreed to. Summoning every ounce of courage, I stepped back. "I saw you in her room. I know what you were trying to do. And I won't let you touch her again." His smile vanished. "Brave girl. Just like your mother. But bravery gets people hurt." Before I could respond, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed across the lot. A nurse walked by, heading toward her car. The hooded man slipped back into the shadows, his eyes never leaving mine until he disappeared behind a row of vehicles. I sank against my car, trembling. For the rest of the day, paranoia followed me like a ghost. Every corner, every passing stranger, I wondered if he was there, watching. That night, I told Aunt Linda what had happened. She gasped and held my hands. "Emily, you can't go anywhere alone. Promise me that." "I promise," I said, though I knew promises didn't always keep people safe. The following morning, something incredible happened. When I walked into Mom's hospital room, I heard the faintest sound. A groan. My heart leapt as her fingers twitched against the blanket. "Mom?" I whispered, rushing to her side. "Mom, it's me, Emily." Her eyelids fluttered, and for the first time since the fall, her eyes opened. They were weak, clouded with pain, but they were alive. "Emily," she whispered, her voice hoarse. Tears blurred my vision. "I'm here, Mom. You're safe now. Please, tell them what happened. Tell them the truth." She opened her mouth to speak, but before a word could escape, the machines around her suddenly began to beep loudly. Nurses rushed in, pushing me aside. "What's happening?" I cried. "She's in distress," one of them shouted. My mother's body jerked as they tried to stabilize her. I screamed her name, but my voice was drowned out by the chaos. After minutes that felt like hours, the machines finally calmed, and my mother's breathing steadied again. I collapsed into a chair, sobbing. She had woken up, just for a moment, but something or someone didn't want her to speak. Later that night, I returned home. My father was in the kitchen, sipping wine like nothing had happened. "How's your mother?" he asked, his tone almost mocking. "She woke up," I said carefully, watching his face. For the first time, his calm mask slipped. His eyes narrowed, his jaw tightened. He set the glass down a little too hard, the sound sharp against the counter. "Did she say anything?" he asked slowly. My hands trembled at my sides. I shook my head. "No. Not yet." He studied me for a long moment, then leaned closer. "If she does, remember what I told you. Accidents happen." I rushed upstairs before he could see the tears in my eyes. That night, I clutched my phone, debating whether to call the police, to tell them everything. But before I could decide, my phone buzzed. It was a text message. From an unknown number. The words made my heart stop. She's not safe in that hospital. Tonight. Hello everyone, my name is Emily Carter. I'm 19 years old, speaking to you from Dallas, Texas. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, like this video, and click the notification bell so you don't miss the rest of this shocking story. And don't forget to comment below telling me where you're watching from. I love hearing from you all. Now, let's continue. I stared at my phone, my hands trembling. The text message glowed on the screen. She's not safe in that hospital. Tonight. I read it again and again, hoping it was a mistake, hoping it was some cruel prank. But deep inside, I knew it wasn't. Some was warning me. Someone knew my father's plan. My chest tightened as panic took over. I needed to act, fast. I rushed to Aunt Linda's room and shook her awake. Aunt Linda, listen to me. We have to go back to the hospital right now. Mom's in danger. She blinked at me, confused. Emily, it's after midnight. What are you talking about? I shoved my phone into her hands. Her eyes widened as she read the message. Oh dear God. We grabbed our coats and keys. My hands shook so badly I dropped the car keys twice before finally starting the engine. Every red light on the way felt like a death sentence, every passing minute another chance for them to hurt my mother. When we arrived at the hospital, the halls were eerily quiet. The night shift nurses moved slowly, their tired faces pale under the fluorescent lights. We rushed to my mother's room, only to find it empty. The bed was stripped bare, the machines gone. Where is she? I gasped. A nurse hurried over. Are you family? Yes. I'm her daughter. Where is she? The nurse glanced around nervously. She was transferred to another wing just an hour ago. Transferred? I demanded. By who? She frowned. A man came with the paperwork. He said he was her relative. I assumed. That's impossible. I shouted, my heart pounding. I'm her only child. And her husband was at home. Panic surged through me. They had taken her. Aunt Linda clutched her chest. Emily, oh God, they've moved her. We tore down the hall, demanding answers, but no one seemed to know where she had been taken. I felt like I was drowning. Every second mattered, and she was slipping further away. Then, as we turned a corner, I froze. Down the hall, I caught a glimpse of him, the hooded man. He was wheeling a gurney, a body strapped under white sheets. Mom! I screamed, sprinting after him. He pushed the gurney faster, bursting through a set of double doors. My feet pounded against the tile floor as Aunt Linda shouted behind me. Stop! Somebody stop him! I cried, but the hallways were empty, the night staff too far away to hear. The man pushed the gurney toward the back exit of the hospital, the red exit sign glowing like fire above the door. My throat burned as I pushed myself faster. Just as he reached the door, he glanced back. Our eyes met. His lips curved into a chilling smile before he shoved the door open and disappeared into the night with my mother. I burst outside, the cold air hitting me like knives. The parking lot was nearly empty, shadows stretching long under the dim lights. In the distance, I saw a van door slam shut. The engine roared to life. No! I screamed, sprinting forward, but the van sped away into the darkness, taillights glowing like the eyes of a demon. I fell to my knees on the pavement, my voice breaking. Mom! Aunt Linda collapsed beside me, sobbing. They've taken her, Emily. They've taken her. And in that moment, I realized the truth, my father hadn't just planned to silence my mother. He had succeeded in taking her out of the hospital. But where had they taken her? And was she even still alive? As I sat there in the cold night air, my phone buzzed again. Another text from the same unknown number. This one sent shivers down my spine. If you want to save her, don't tell the police. Wait for instructions. Hi everyone, my name is Emily Carter. I'm 19 years old, speaking to you from Dallas, Texas. If this is your first time hearing my story, don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and click the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. And please, tell me in the comments what part of the country you're watching from, I really want to know. Now, let's continue. I stared at my phone, the words on the screen burning into my mind. If you want to save her, don't tell the police. Wait for instructions. My breath came in short gasps. Aunt Linda gripped my arm, her face pale. Emily, we have to call the police. They've taken Grace. We can't fight this alone. But my eyes stayed fixed on the message. Don't tell the police. What if calling them made things worse? What if it put my mom's life in more danger? I don't know, I stammered. If we call, they might hurt her. We have to be careful. Aunt Linda shook her head, tears streaming down her face. But Emily, what if they kill her anyway? Her words stabbed into me like knives. Every second was a choice that could cost my mother her life. We drove home in silence, the night pressing in on us. My father's car was parked in the driveway, the porch light glowing faintly. As we stepped inside, he was sitting on the couch, calmly reading the newspaper like it was just another night. You're home late, he said without looking up. My throat tightened. Did he know? Was he behind it all? I forced my voice to stay steady. Mom was transferred. His newspaper lowered just enough for me to see the faint curl of his lips. Transferred, he repeated softly. Hospitals do strange things sometimes. I wanted to scream at him, to accuse him right there. But instead, I bit down so hard on my lip I tasted blood. That night, I barely slept. I lay in bed staring at my phone, waiting, terrified. Every buzz made me jump. Hours passed until, at last, another message came. Tomorrow. Noon. Be alone. Wait at the old Miller Bridge. Bring no one, or she dies. I dropped the phone, my hands shaking violently. The old Miller Bridge was abandoned years ago, a place no one visited anymore. Why there? I barely made it through the morning. Aunt Linda begged me to call the police, but I knew I couldn't risk it. Not yet. When noon came, I drove to the bridge, my heart pounding with every mile. The wooden beams creaked as I stepped out of the car, the river rushing below. The air smelled of rust and decay. Hello? I called out, my voice trembling. I'm here. Where's my mother? Silence. Then, from the shadows under the bridge, a figure emerged. It was the hooded man. You came alone, he said, his voice cold. Where is she? I demanded. He smirked. Safe, for now. But safety has a price. My stomach twisted. What do you want from me? He stepped closer, his eyes dark. Not from you. From your father. But you're going to deliver the message. I clenched my fists. Why me? Because, he said, leaning so close I could feel his breath, your father doesn't fear anyone but losing control. And you, Emily, are the one thing he can't control anymore. He handed me a folded paper. My fingers shook as I opened it. Inside was a single demand written in messy ink. Tell Richard Carter he has 48 hours. Or Grace disappears forever. I looked up at the man, my chest heaving. If you hurt her. Don't waste your threats, he interrupted coldly. You want her alive? Do exactly as I say. No police. No tricks. Before I could reply, he vanished into the shadows again, leaving me alone on the creaking bridge, clutching the paper like it was burning my skin. I drove home in silence, the words echoing in my mind, 48 hours. When I walked through the door, my father was in the kitchen, sipping coffee. His eyes met mine, sharp and unreadable. Where have you been? He asked. I tightened my grip on the paper in my pocket. This was it. The moment I had to decide, tell him everything and risk my mother, or stay silent and watch the clock tick down. My heart thundered as I opened my mouth. But before I could speak, he smiled, a slow, knowing smile. And then he said words that froze my blood. I know where she is. Hi everyone, my name is Emily Carter. I'm 19 years old, speaking from Dallas, Texas. Before I continue, please don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and hit the notification bell so you never miss what comes next. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from, it means so much to me. Now, let's dive back into the story. When my father leaned back and said those haunting words, I know where she is, my knees nearly gave out. My fingers clutched the folded paper in my pocket like it was the last thread holding me together. You know? I whispered, my voice barely audible. His eyes glinted in the dim kitchen light. He stirred his coffee slowly, almost lazily, as if we were discussing the weather. Emily, do you really think I don't have eyes everywhere? I know who's holding your mother. I know what they want. And I know why. The room spun around me. He wasn't surprised. He wasn't even scared. He was calm, too calm. What did you do? I shouted, slamming my hand on the table. Why are they after her? Why is she suffering because of you? He tilted his head, studying me like I was some experiment. Then he sighed. Because your mother tried to leave. She thought she could run away with secrets that belonged to me. They caught her before I could. My blood ran cold. Secrets? What are you talking about? His voice dropped, low and dangerous. Money. Deals. Things you don't understand. She wanted to ruin everything, Emily. She betrayed me. And now, he smirked, she's paying the price. I felt my chest tighten as if the walls were collapsing on me. He had pushed her on the staircase, lied to the police, and now admitted she was taken because of him. I wanted to scream, to throw the coffee mug in his face. But fear glued my feet to the floor. You're a monster, I hissed. For the first time, his smile faded. His jaw tightened, and his eyes turned sharp. Careful, Emily. Remember whose house you live in. I ran to my room before I could say another word. My heart was racing, my mind exploding with questions. Should I tell Aunt Linda what he said? Should I go to the police? Or should I confront him again and demand he bring Mom back? The night dragged on like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Every creak in the house made me jump. At one point, I swore I saw my father standing outside my door, just listening. But when I blinked, the shadow was gone. The next morning, I overheard him on the phone. His voice was sharp, low, filled with threats. You have 48 hours, he said. Do your job right this time. No mistakes. My stomach flipped. Was he talking to the kidnappers? Or someone else? I couldn't stay silent anymore. I ran straight to Aunt Linda's house, tears streaming down my face as I told her everything, about the bridge, the paper, the man, and my father's confession. Aunt Linda covered her mouth, horrified. Emily, he's dangerous. We need to get you out of that house. But before we could plan anything, her phone buzzed. She picked it up, and her face turned white. She handed it to me with trembling hands. On the screen was a photo message. It was my mother. She was tied to a chair, her face bruised, her eyes filled with silent pleas for help. Underneath the photo were chilling words. Time is running out. My knees buckled, and I nearly dropped the phone. Aunt Linda grabbed me, steadying me. That's when the front door creaked open. We both froze. Footsteps echoed through the house. Heavy, deliberate. And then, my father's voice. Emily. I think it's time you stopped hiding from me. Hi everyone, my name is Emily Carter. I'm 19 years old, speaking to you from Dallas, Texas. Before I go on, don't forget to subscribe, like this video, And hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next shocking part of my story. And please tell me in the comments what part of the country you're watching from, I always love to know. Now, let's get back to it. The moment I heard my father's voice inside Aunt Linda's house, my blood turned to ice. Aunt Linda's hand tightened on my arm, her eyes wide with panic. "Emily," she whispered, "we have to hide." But there was no time. His footsteps were already moving closer, slow and deliberate, like a predator savoring the hunt. I grabbed Aunt Linda's hand, and we ducked into the small storage room beside the kitchen. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure he could hear it. "Emily," my father called again, his voice echoing through the hallway. "You've been a very bad girl, running to Linda, telling her things you shouldn't." The storage room was dark, filled with boxes and old furniture. I pressed my hand over my mouth to silence my breathing. Aunt Linda clutched the phone with the photo of my mom still glowing on the screen. We could hear him moving, opening doors one by one. Closer. Closer. Finally, his shadow stretched across the floor just outside the storage room. The handle began to turn. My chest tightened, I thought my heart would stop. Then suddenly, Aunt Linda shoved me toward the back window. "Go," she whispered. "Climb out." "But what about you?" I hissed back. "I'll hold him off. Just go." Before I could argue, she pushed me again, harder this time. My hand scrambled against the wooden frame as I pulled myself up, squeezing through the narrow opening. The cold air hit my face as I tumbled out onto the grass behind the house. I heard the door slam open inside. My father's voice roared. "Where is she?" Aunt Linda's voice, trembling but defiant, answered, "You'll never touch her again, Richard." Then came a loud crash, the sound of something breaking, followed by her scream. I covered my mouth to keep from crying out. My whole body shook as I crouched behind the bushes, listening helplessly. For a few seconds, there was silence. Then, my father's voice again, calm, chilling. "She made her choice. And now so have you." The next sound was a heavy thud. My stomach twisted violently. I wanted to run inside, to protect her, to stop him. But my legs refused to move. Fear pinned me to the ground. A moment later, the front door slammed shut. His footsteps crunched across the driveway, and his car roared to life. He was leaving. When I finally dared to move, I crept back inside through the broken window. The storage room was a mess, boxes scattered, a chair overturned. And on the floor, motionless, lay Aunt Linda. Her face was pale, her eyes half closed. Blood trickled from a cut on her forehead. "Aunt Linda!" I cried, falling to my knees beside her. I shook her gently. "Please wake up. Please." Her lips parted, and in the faintest whisper she said, "Emily, run. He won't stop." Tears streamed down my face as her hand slipped from mine. And then, just as I reached for my phone to call for help, I felt it buzz in my hand. It was another message. From the same unknown number. "You have 24 hours left. Bring your father to us. Or your mother dies." Hi everyone, my name is Emily Carter. I'm 19 years old, and I'm speaking from Dallas, Texas. Before I start, please remember to subscribe, like this video, and click the notification bell so you don't miss the ending of my story. And please tell me in the comments where you're watching from, I always read them. Now, let's continue. The phone shook in my hands as I read the message again. "You have 24 hours left. Bring your father to us. Or your mother." My chest tightened so badly I could barely breathe. Deliver my father? The same man who pushed my mother down the staircase, lied to the police, and nearly killed Aunt Linda? I wanted to say yes immediately, to hand him over to the monsters who wanted him. But part of me wondered, what if it was a trap? What if they killed both of them, my mother and him, and left me alone in this nightmare? Aunt Linda groaned softly beside me. She was alive, thank God, but barely conscious. I called 911 with trembling fingers, whispering for them to hurry. Paramedics arrived quickly, lifting her onto a stretcher. As they carried her out, she gripped my hand weakly. "Emily," she whispered, her voice fading, "do what they ask. It's the only way." Her words echoed in my head long after the ambulance left. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my father's empty coffee cup still sitting where he left it. My mind swirled with anger, fear, and confusion. When he finally came home, the house went still. I heard the door open, his footsteps in the hall, the jingle of his car keys on the counter. "Emily," he called, his voice smooth, almost amused. "We need to talk." I clenched my fists and walked into the living room. He sat there like a king on his throne, his eyes locked on me. "You've been very busy," he said slowly. "Running to Linda, sneaking off to meet strangers. You think I don't know?" I swallowed hard. "They have Mom. And they want you." His smile faltered for the first time. "They want me?" he repeated. I pulled the paper from my pocket, the one the hooded man had given me at the bridge, and threw it on the table. "They gave me 24 hours. If I don't bring you, she's dead." His face darkened, his jaw tight. "You don't know what you're dealing with, Emily." My voice cracked as tears filled my eyes. "I don't care. She's my mother. And I won't let her die because of you." For a long moment, silence filled the room. He looked at me like he was deciding something. Then, slowly, he stood up. "Fine," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "If they want me, then let's give them what they want." My stomach flipped. "What do you mean?" He stepped closer, towering over me. His eyes glowed with something between rage and excitement. "You're going to take me to them. But not the way they think. We're going to set a trap. And when it's over, Emily, no one will ever stand against me again." A shiver ran through me. He wasn't scared of them. He was planning to fight back. But as I stared into his cold eyes, I realized something terrifying. He didn't care about saving Mom. He only cared about winning. And if I followed his plan, I might lose her forever. Hi everyone, my name is Emily Carter. I'm 19 years old, speaking to you from Dallas, Texas. If you haven't already, please subscribe, like this video, and click the notification bell so you don't miss the next part. And tell me in the comments what part of the country you're watching from. I read every one. Now, listen carefully. This is where everything I thought I knew begins to break. After my father said he would go with me and set a trap, something inside me tightened like a wire. I could see the excitement in his eyes, not fear, not urgency, but the hungry look of a man who thinks he still controls everything. He wanted a show. He wanted to prove he was untouchable. I wanted my mother back. I spent that night staring at the ceiling, trying to plan. My father's plan was loud and violent sounding in ways I didn't trust. He wanted confrontation. He wanted to bring people. He wanted attention. The kidnappers had warned us not to involve the police. Aunt Linda, barely conscious now, had whispered the same thing before they took her. But the blood on my hands, the broken wood in Linda's house, the hospital room emptied of my mother. I felt like the only way forward was to lie to everyone while doing the smallest, most dangerous thing I could think of, secretly try to save Mom on my own. I needed help. I had the anonymous texts, the voice that had warned me before. Whoever sent those messages had saved us from the hospital that night. Whoever they were, they knew how to move without showing on cameras and they knew how to speak to me without fear. So I answered their last message with something small and vague, "I'll do it. Tell me what to do next." The reply came faster than I thought it would. "Meet at the old freight yard off Route 14. Tonight. Come alone. Bring your father. Trust no one but us." It felt like stepping into another storm. The freight yard was miles away from town, a place full of rusted containers and shadows. My hands shook just thinking about it. My father insisted on coming with me but made it sound like he was leading the plan. He parked his car a little too close to the gate, walked with that slow, confident stride, and kept talking about how he would take care of things once he met them. He kept his phone in his hand, fingers tapping in short bursts, like he expected an update any moment. We drove in silence most of the way. I watched him, trying to read his face, searching for a crack that would tell me he felt regret. But there was none. Only a cold emptiness that made me sick. When we arrived at the freight yard, it was nearly midnight. The yard was lit by a few sodium lamps that spilled thin circles of yellow light over stacks of containers. Cars were parked at odd angles. The air smelled of oil and wet metal. The yard felt like a theater set made for villains. My father kept glancing around, watching for cameras or men in dark jackets. He said quietly, "Keep your phone away. No flashes. No making any sudden moves." His voice was low and clipped, like someone describing a plan he'd rehearsed in his head. We walked toward the spot the messages described, an empty space between two shipping crates, where old pallets had been stacked into a rough bench. I kept my phone in my shoe like he might have taught me, out of sight but close enough to pull if I needed to call. My heart hammered. Then a van door slid open across the yard, and two figures stepped out. They were not the hooded man or the hospital worker. They wore plain clothes and carried no obvious weapons. A third figure stood back in the shadow, lean and still. "Them?" my father asked, voice low. "Yeah," the nearest figure said, and then, in a voice that was softer than I expected, the stranger added, "You brought her?" My father nodded. He walked forward and did something that made my chest tighten. He put his hand on my shoulder, like we were partners. His hand was cold and firm. The stranger tossed a paper onto the crate. My father picked it up and unfolded it. I didn't see what it said at first, but I watched his face. He read and his expression changed. Not the stunned change of someone who didn't expect bad news, a measured change, like someone who'd been given new odds and was already recalculating. "You read?" the man asked. My father looked up, and for the very first time, I heard something like fear in his voice. They said they want proof." His mouth clicked. "They want to make sure I'm the one." "Proof?" the other man repeated, casual. "What kind of proof?" My father hesitated, then forced a cold laugh. "They want to see that I can't betray them. They want someone close to me to bring me. To confirm I'm willing." I felt sick. The paper in my father's hand felt hot even though it wasn't. What could they possibly want as proof of his loyalty? My mind raced through awful scenarios. Did they want blood? Money returned? A confession in exchange for my mother's life? But then the stranger with the softer voice leaned forward and dropped something else on the crate, a thin video player. The small screen flickered alive without warning and showed a single frame. My stomach went hollow. I recognized the room immediately, the same one from the photo, and in the frame, my mother's face was on the screen, eyes wide and wet, and next to her, tied to another chair, sat someone I never expected to see. It was my father. I lurched back as if struck. The world titled dangerously. The screen showed him tied, his face bruised, and my mother's mouth moving around a word I couldn't hear. The frame switched and showed an earlier clip, the man in the hood approaching the hospital bed, then another angle of the van sliding away. Then the screen cut to black. My father's hand tightened on the paper until the edges crinkled. He looked like a man who had been promised everything and then robbed in front of the altar. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. "So," the softer-voiced man asked again. "Calm. Patient." My mind screamed. They have him. They tied him next to Mom. Had my father lied? Had he been taken too? Or, a far worse thought, had this been staged to trick me into bringing him, to force him to submit? I thought of the nights he had come to my door, the way he'd threatened me in the hallway, "You didn't see anything." The thought that he might be a victim too made me dizzy. The thought that he could be both villain and victim made my stomach drop into a deeper dark. You said bring him, I heard myself say before I could stop it. My voice was small, raw. You said we should trap them. The man with the softer voice smiled, a slow, almost sympathetic curl. We did. We put him where he'd be when you walked in. We know how he loves to stage something. We know how he would come. Proof is proof. My father's face drained of color. You set me up, he whispered in a thin voice. You tricked. Tricked, the man repeated. No. We used what works. Power likes to parade. Control likes to be in the open. You gave us the stage. He looked to me. Now, Emily. We need you to tell him to do something. What? My throat tightened. Panic and rage roared inside me. I wanted to hit someone, to rip the screen from the crate and smash it. Instead, I felt frozen. Record a message, the soft voice said simply. A confession from him. He must admit his crimes on video. If he does, both he and your mother walk free. If not, the proof goes out to people who will make sure no one can help them. The man's smile went cold. You have 20 minutes. My father looked at me like a child pleading with a parent. Tell them, do it. Make them believe. Tell them you'll cooperate. It's the only way to save her. My stomach wrenched. He sounded so small, so human in that moment, and that almost undid me. But the screen showed him tied up, and his face was marked with bruises I had not given him. If he had been taken, then he might also be a pawn. If he had not, then he had staged everything from the beginning. I reached into my shoe, fingers trembling, and pulled out my phone. The man handed me a compact tripod and a cheap microphone. Talk into it, he said. Say what we give you. Or don't, but remember, we have cameras all over the city. This is your best choice. A folded sheet of paper had been left with the tripod. My hand shook as I opened it. The words were blunt, cruel in their simplicity. Say, I, Richard Carter, admit to causing harm to Grace Carter and being part of a scheme that put her life at risk. I turn myself over and plead for mercy for my wife. I ask for clemency as I reveal those who helped me. My mouth went dry. My father looked at me, eyes burning with a mixture of hatred and pleading that made me want to vomit. Looking at him, my whole childhood flickered, the park, the hands that once steadied me, and then the staircase, the lie to the police, Aunt Linda's blood. Say it, Emily, he whispered. Say it. I'll do whatever. Just say it. Behind him, one of the other men snapped a picture of the screen showing my mother. The man with the soft voice lifted his chin. You have 20 minutes, he said again. Start recording. I pressed my phone on, hands shaking. The camera light blinked red. My father sat down on a crate, shoulders slumped as if someone had taken the air out of him. He raised his chin, and his face hardened. If he had planned this from the start, it was the bravest and cruelest performance I'd ever seen. If he hadn't, he was trying to play along to survive. I took a breath and forced my voice steady. Dad, I said, this is your chance to save her. Say it. He looked at me, and for one tear-wet second, I saw my father, not the monster, not the showman, but the man who used to whistle while fixing the fence. He swallowed and began to speak into my phone's camera, voice low and flat. But before he finished the first sentence, headlights flashed suddenly from the far end of the yard. A deep, commanding shout cut the night like an axe. Freeze! Nobody move! Men in dark uniforms, too many to be the three who had been waiting, exploded from behind containers, their silhouettes carved by light. Weapons glinted. Radios crackled. Shouts filled the air. My heart leapt in my throat. I looked back and saw, on the small screen of the cheap video player, my mother's face flicker. The camera in the crate showed another angle, men with badges rushing toward us, and then the screen cut to static. A guard's flashlight swung and landed on me. A voice barked, hands where we can see them. I fumbled with the phone, the tripod slipping from my sweaty fingers. My father's eyes widened in pure, unmasked fury. He stood up so fast that I nearly fell back. The last thing I heard before the men closed in was the soft voice from earlier, calm and horrid. "We wanted it all to be clean. We wanted you to choose." Then someone grabbed my arm hard, and the world went loud with orders, boots, and the scraping of metal. I had no idea who those men were. Police? Private security? Killers posing as cops? In the chaos, the screen on the crate flicked back on for a single moment and showed one last frame before it died, my mother's face, and next to her, not my father this time, but Aunt Linda, bound and bruised. A cold, new terror settled in my chest. I realized suddenly that whatever trap we had walked into, it had layers I could not see. People I thought helped us might be the ones with the knives. People I thought had been villains could be victims. And the clock, the deadline they had given, was not just for my father anymore. The man who had spoken softly earlier stepped forward into the ring of light, his face calm. He looked at me as the uniforms closed in. "Now," he said quietly, "we see what you'll do." Before I could respond, hands grabbed my phone and twisted it from my fingers. The last thing I saw on the tiny screen before it vanished into a hand was the face of my mother, her eyes pleading, and behind her, the shape of a silhouette I recognized all too well. My father laughed then, a sound without joy. "You think you've won?" he said into the noise. His laugh turned to a growl. "You don't know what you've done." I felt cold all over. The men in uniforms moved faster now, shouting about arrests and warrants, but the words felt muffled, like they were happening underwater. I tried to catch my father's eye. He looked at me once, an expression I could not read, and then turned toward the men who had surrounded us. The soft-voiced man slipped away into the shadows, disappearing like smoke. One of the uniformed men barked, "Emily Carter, you're under protective custody. You'll come with us." The phrase protective custody sounded like music and like poison at the same time. I wanted to cry out that they had my mother, that Aunt Linda was hurt, that my father had lied and confessed and maybe been taken too. But the hands on my arms were strong and not gentle. As they led us toward the waiting cars, my eyes caught a flash of movement back at the crate. The small video player had rebooted, and for a heartbeat it showed a new live feed, a room with a single window. My heart stopped. In the window, I saw a van pulling away. Inside, someone leaned forward and whispered into a phone. The voice was cold and familiar. "Make sure she watches." The van's lights disappeared, swallowed by the night. They put me into the back of a car. My phone was gone. The crate and the men and the flickering screens receded into the distance as tires hummed the yard into silence. My father was sitting across from me, his hands cuffed. His face looked different, not just afraid, but raw, as if everything had been peeled from him. A uniformed officer leaned in and said, sharply, "We're taking you to a safe location. Don't worry, we'll get your mother back." I wanted to believe him. I wanted nothing more than to believe that help had arrived and that these men were the answer. But the van's taillights slipping into the road and the soft voice's last words, "Make sure she watches," kept echoing. And in the corner of my mind, a new terrible thought took hold. What if this was another layer of the plan? What if the people who claimed to be saving us were only another group of players in a game we didn't understand? What if every choice I made had been expected, designed, and used against us? As the car pulled away, my stomach clotted with one last image etched into my head, my mother's face on that screen, watching something she could not stop, and behind her, a dark silhouette leaning close. The officers closed the car door. The engine started. The city lights blurred. My world was moving, and I had no idea where it would take me next. Then the car turned, and the GPS voice chimed softly, giving a route I had never heard of. "Hi everyone, it's Emily Carter again. I'm 19 years old, speaking from Dallas, Texas. Before I share the final part of this journey, please subscribe, like this video, and click the notification bell for more stories like this one. And don't forget to comment the part of the country you're watching from. I'd love to hear from you. Now let's finish this story. The gunfire stopped as quickly as it had begun. My father lay motionless on the ground, the kidnappers lowering their weapons. The hooded man stepped closer, his face hidden in the shadows. "This was never about you, Emily," he said. "It was about him. He owed debts, betrayed people who trusted him. Your mother was only leverage. Now, it's over." I held my mom tighter, tears streaming down my face. "Then let us go. Please. Haven't we suffered enough?" The man studied us for a long moment, then nodded once. With a wave of his hand, the others melted back into the darkness, leaving only silence, rain, and the lifeless body of the man who had destroyed our family. My mom and I stumbled out into the storm, the weight of everything pressing down on us. She leaned on me, weak but alive. At the hospital later that night, Aunt Linda was recovering, my mom was treated for her injuries, and for the first time in years, I felt something I thought I'd lost forever: freedom. But freedom came with scars. In the days that followed, police reports were filed, questions were asked, and I had to relive the truth again and again, that my father had pushed my mother down the stairs, lied to the police, and nearly destroyed us all. But at least now, the truth was known. I learned something powerful through all of it. Sometimes, the people who are supposed to protect you can be the very ones who hurt you the most. But that doesn't mean you're broken. It means you have to be strong enough to choose a different path. I chose my mother. I chose life. And I chose to break free from the darkness my father tried to chain us in. And to anyone out there who feels trapped by lies, fear, or abuse, please hear me: you are stronger than you think. And one day, you will find your way out too. So that's the end of my story. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification bell so you never miss any of my upcoming stories. And please, one last time, tell me in the comments what part of the country you're watching from. I love you all, and I'll see you in the next story. Like and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to comment where you are watching from. Thanks for watching.